And we're going to come up in 5. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. We've got so much to talk about every day. I don't even know which story to go with, which one, because it seems that everything is happening at one time. Now we're in the midst of the largest and longest government shutdown in our nation's history. When will this end? Many people don't see an end in sight. I've been speaking to any number of my friends who are on Capitol Hill in Washington. And because they're so close to the epicenter, they said, we just don't know. And people in both houses are having to furlough employees because they cannot pay them. And we're seeing chaos in our friendly skies. Indeed, Frontier Airlines CEO, the CEO said, look, what you should do, he did something that you never hear CEOs say. Get you a ticket, a backup ticket on another airline, because flying is that unreliable now. Because many of our air traffic controllers and people who work in the airports, because guess what? The people who work in the airports, well, they can't get paid either. Well, they're turning to Uber. I mean, they're having to come up with a lot of different kinds of jobs just to make ends meet. And with more and more people not working, how does that work? Because we all need each other. By being employed, we keep everybody else working. It's circuitous, everybody. But, a big portion of our workforce are being deported. They're being arrested. They're being detained. And we've been talking about this for some time. And it's not just brown people. This is everybody. And one cannot help but think that there's something else going on. After 9/11, you started having to strip down and become compliant at the airport, not move. Be very careful on the airplane because you've got marshals whom you don't know, whom you can't identify, watching you. We're heavily surveilled now. And I'm wondering what all of this is about. Really, now people are afraid to take their children to school. Children are afraid to go to school, and let alone participate in extracurricular activities. People are knowing that if they go protest, they could end up in jail. But imprisoned where? There's a lot for us to talk about here today. And of course, joining our regular panelist, Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian and author, and a social critic and really analyst with us today. We're glad to have you, Matthew Harvey, award-winning journalist. And I'm so glad that you have been doing so much organizing. You're not just a journalist. You not only investigate and tell the stories, but you're from Equity and Transformation. And I want to get this right, Chicago's Coalition to Protect Black Communities. When ICE were first deployed, when the thought of them were being deployed, when some Black people like us brought up the fact that, oh boy, that means we're all going to be vulnerable. Many people said, oh, this is not about us. This is about them. And it's always dangerous when you say that it's about them, that it's not me, it's we, always. So you tell me what is going on. The latest uproar that we have in Chicago, you have to take your children to a daycare center, to places, particularly if they are in bilingual and households in which the native language is not the generally spoken language in the United States, which is English. And so there's an immersion school / Head Start / daycare center. And one of the teachers, caregivers there, was arrested in front of the children.
Mm-hmm.
What happened here, Matthew Harvey?
Yeah, so we saw it go down in North Center, I believe, where the rape at the Soul daycare center is.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw is what we've been seeing time and time again when ICE is abducting people, infiltrating places that are supposed to be sacred, places that we expect to be safe. These are hospitals, these are schools, and in this case, an early childhood center. And I think the most alarming thing beyond what you may think, what assumptions we may have either way about whether we like ICE or not. The fact that there are unnamed men just walking into a school building where there are small kids with guns ablaze, it's frightening. It makes anyone feel unsafe, regardless of their status. Because of course, as is in most cases in the city of Chicago, you have people of different immigration statuses, intermingling all the time. Um, so the threat is largely blown, and they take these harsh tactics, these scare tactics, to try and trigger a response in us that gives them an excuse to uh, harm us and ultimately sometimes kill us.
Mhm.
And what we've been trying to do is build up a resistance to it in the form of mutual aid, in the form of training people on their rights, just to build more community and connection with amongst one another. Our belief being that if we can get enough people understanding how this is a risk to all of us, then the better we can fight off this occupying force in ICE.
Well, neighborhoods they've established watch committees,
Mhm.
formal and informal. Can you describe what they are?
Yeah, so a lot of different communities and different organizations have like banded together to create rapid response teams. Uh, these teams are folks that are outside on the watch for ICE. They usually have whistles around their necks, and I encourage anybody, if you don't already have one, grab a red whistle. People are just giving them away right now because the idea is that if we have community members who are just on alert, then we have a less of a chance of people being abducted, often in harsh terms. What we've seen is that when ICE is being recorded, they're less likely to use uh, those more drastic tactics against people. They're less likely to use have those abuses against our rights once they know they're being monitored, when they're hearing those whistles go off. And these rapid response teams have been responsible for reporting the overuse of force. They've been the ones responsible for contacting media and getting them out when there are times when ICE is causing a ruckus in the southwest side. We saw where would they caused accidents in the middle of intersections, and chaos ensues after that. So having people on the ground in these different neighborhoods mean that we can quickly intercept ICE. We can alert our neighbors that to be on the lookout and to be able to report on what's happening, because not enough people, I think, realize what's truly going on. Just outside of our office out west, Harrison, in California, a young black man was hemmed up by ICE right there on the bridge, and and community members swooped in to kind of intervene. So
A
we
young
need,
white American?
yeah, a black man from Chicago. Like it was interesting and kind of like upsetting, but revealing, having black people running up to him trying to help him help intervene with ICE. And what they're saying is, no, he's not one of them. He's not one of them. And it's like they don't care. They don't mind that it don't matter to them that this is may or may not be a resident. We know that they're not really checking even the people that appear to be immigrants. They're not even checking their information a lot of the times. So we have incidents of known citizens being abducted by ICE. Of course, someone's going to be black, especially since they operating in black communities.
Attorney Mark Fancher, what do you make of that? Um, because many of us, many black people, felt that this would not happen to us, but um, it's it is happening to us. But now, a white pastor who went to to go into the ICE facility, he was shot in the face. You saw that a few weeks ago, Pastor Black, uh, and we are seeing white people who are being assaulted. I mean, Americans are under occupation. We're living under that. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I know I say this over and over like a mantra, but it's true. And that the whole idea behind Make America Great Again is really, it's a code for Make America White Again. And the objective is not to address the immigration problem as it has been characterized, but it is essentially to purge the country of as many people of color as possible. Because at bottom, the entire MAGA movement is driven by white fear of the prospect of the white population becoming a numerical minority in the years to come. And the effort to try and bolster the white population has taken many different forms, everything from Elon Musk having as many white children as he can possibly have,
Mhm.
to trying to bring in white South African Afrikaners into the population, to trying to encourage people from Scandinavia to immigrate, from Ukraine to immigrate, while at the same time trying to drive out as many people from south of the border as possible, as many people from the Caribbean as possible, and if possible, as our brother just explained, to even get rid of homegrown Black people because they don't help this problem with the declining white population either. So it should come as no surprise that that's what's happening. And of course, all of it is illegal. And as we have seen, that is of no concern to the current administration whatsoever. The ways in which ICE has been operating, it's been a very reckless cowboy kind of an approach to making arrests. But technically, arrests are governed by the Fourth Amendment, and they're not supposed to occur unless, under particular circumstances, an officer has reasonable suspicion of the possibility of the crime, probable cause to believe that a crime is being committed or may be committed, or they have a warrant for an arrest. And with respect to ICE, their arrest authority is even more limited because they're not able to function as a normal police officer would, who would go about trying to arrest people for any number of crimes that might be observed. But ICE has a very specific arrest authority and function, which is limited to those situations involving violation of immigration laws. And if what they're doing is simply roaming the streets and using, just hunches and whatever whims that may govern them at the moment to just pick people up, then that's inconsistent even with the authority that they've been given now to engage to some degree in racial profiling. So it is a situation that's completely out of control, and that's by design.
Mhm.
And I think that for those uh, in communities of color, particularly the Black community, who have come to think, for whatever reason, that we are not to be touched by this, that this is only for Spanish speaking people or people who are otherwise quite visibly people from other countries, then I think they really need to wake up really quickly, and they never should have gone to sleep in the first place.
Well, when they are detained, or when they, okay, let me back up. ICE, do they have arrest powers?
They do, but it's limited only to those situations where there are either actual violations of immigration laws or they, given the circumstances, have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to make the arrest.
Okay, so where do they take you? Because that's getting confusing. You have centers in these cities, but then we're seeing people who are being deported. We're seeing some Americans who are being deported. We're seeing some legal residents who've been deported, and trying to get them back is a very, very difficult task. Where do they take you when they've arrested you? And are they supposed to identify themselves to you?
Well, as to the latter question, that's I can't give you a definitive answer on that.
Mhm.
As to the first, it's anybody's guess, which is part of the problem. Uh, when we're dealing with regular law enforcement officers, it's pretty much established where you're going to go. You're going to be taken to the local police station to be held in a detention cell, pending arraignment or some other legal proceedings. And everybody knows the drill with respect to standard criminal proceedings. But there have been so many flagrant violations of due process requirements that the 14th Amendment generally guarantees with respect to immigration, because uh, the administration and ICE have been making this stuff up as they go along, pretty much. And it makes it very hard to know where people are going to go, what's going to happen to them, because they're functioning basically as as the authors of their own laws and procedures. And in some cases, they've just thrown due process out of the window and they don't provide it whatsoever. And so we there's no predictability here.
And they're answerable to whom?
Ultimately, these there can be, if there is someone who's taken into custody, detained, habeas petitions can be filed on their behalf sometimes, and they're brought before a court who will examine their circumstances and possibly provide them with some relief. But the way that they've been handling things, that sometimes presents a challenge even for those who have the resources and the opportunities to try and to resort to the courts for some type of intervention or relief.
We're talking with attorney Mark Fancher. We've got Matt Harvey back to talk about what's happening. Well, it's happening in Chicago, but increasingly these ICE arrest, detentions, raids, they're happening all over the country. And they're very unsettling. Um, and one has to wonder, like, if you have, I come, Attorney Fancher and I come from another era than you. And so we had Black Panthers and other organizations that would protect our communities from the police, as you recall, Mark, um, because we were under assault, and one has to wonder if that would even be possible today. Attorney Fancher, first you, and then you, Matthew Harvey.
Well, Brother Harvey was speaking earlier about the efforts that are underway to try and get people to use whistles, and that observing law enforcement is in most cases a very good thing to do, uh, because under the light of day and under the watchful eyes of concerned community members, they are less likely to engage in abusive conduct. There's never a guarantee that they won't commit crimes, but if they're being observed, then they're less likely to, and so that can't hurt. There is an element of risk in that, given the lawlessness of ICE and this administration. But if people are maintaining an appropriate distance, if they're not interfering directly, physically with the efforts that are underway to take someone into custody, but they're watching, they're recording, they're making their presence known in ways that are not interfering. I don't think that that's a bad thing, just personally, and that's not legal advice. That's just my practical observation.
Hmm.
Because if you look at, you made reference to the Black Panther Party, their initial project was to basically police the police.
Yes.
And even though they were armed, and many people mistook that to be their effort to try and attack the police, that's not what they were doing. The police department in Oakland, California, was so lawless, so criminal in the way that it operated, that they were essentially carrying the weapons for purposes of defending themselves. But they would follow behind the police. They would observe them from a lawful distance. They would shout what the law allowed for the police to do or not do when they were making arrests. And if the police violated the law in ways that suggested that they were going to commit a crime that was going to result in injury or death, then the Panthers would threaten to intervene directly and to take matters into their own hands in order to enforce the law. So I think that the model that they created for us is one that is adaptable to this situation, and I think our brother here is talking about something that could be very useful and very effective.
Matthew Harvey.
Absolutely, I appreciate what you're saying, because one of the things that about equity and transformation where we work, and about this Chicago's coalition to protect Black communities, is that we're very much working in the same vein as the Panthers when we talk about what we're trying to do for our communities. So at our work, we try to build alternatives. One of the main things in each mission is building alternatives to the systems that we feel like have failed our peoples and supposedly meant to support them. So when we say that, we talk about providing mutual aid to people, because we feel like the social supports that are supposed to help our people just aren't sufficing. Our people are still starving. Our people are still struggling to make ends meet and struggling to get food. So we started the free breakfast program on the west side of Harrison in California, where we're feeding kids before school. Now, we don't have the manpower yet or the resources to do it every day, but we try to do it at least once a week before school. We held down mutual aid handouts where we literally just gave people money, because we're understanding in this time there's going to be a number of people that don't even feel safe going to and from work, let alone the people that are going to miss out on, who might be business owners or what have you, who may miss out on patronage because some of their customers might have been abducted. People who simply need to eat and to pay bills or to use the money for providing for their kids, whatever it may be. Our people need to be able to sustain themselves. And what we say is, well, we're not going to wait on the government to do that for us. While it is their responsibility, let's get that clear. We are taxpayers in this country, so it is the government's responsibility to ensure that folks have access to those supports. But in the absence of them, we're going to step in and make sure our people have those supports. We want to prepare people for what may be happening. So we say, we're going to give you know your rights training. We're going to put you in front of a lawyer who can give you direct information about what you should do when you're encountered by ICE. And I really want to drive this last point home, which is that ICE is another version of the Alphabet Boys. When we say ICE, it kind of separates it from FBI or CIA because it's a word and it feels different. But ICE is just federal law enforcement. And we've seen the federal law enforcement time and time again infiltrate Black communities, arrest our people unjustly, abuse our people, kill our people, and lie to us about it. And at this point, Black people, we know now, and they've also admitted it at different junctures.
Well, Matthew Harvey, stay right there, because I think many communities, until it happens to you, you don't get it, right? And in our community, we're so accustomed to infiltration that we don't make a distinction between the intelligence agencies. We just call them the Alphabet Boys. So I just want you to help people to understand that, because there are many people in this audience who are not Black. And so when you say Alphabet Boys, I wanted you to explain.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by that. The Alphabet Boys, and it's the name's kind of explanatory, but the letters that denote these different organizations that we know, the DEA, the CIA, the FBI, the misuse and abuse of the alphabet.
DPD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it goes so far as your local police department, alphabet boys too. But right now we're focusing on the feds is the idea that, like, the truth of the matter is that we have experienced it. Like, the idea that our people are waiting on it to happen to us, it has already happened to us, and we know it. And it is from these same perpetrators. The idea that Donald Trump is somehow different than Ronald Reagan or any other president that sicked them on us is something that I don't want our people to fall for. This is just like what was happening then. The only difference is that the lie that they're telling us now is that there's a Venezuelan in between me and the progress of my community.
Well, I mean, why did that resonate with you, Attorney Fancher?
No, because it's such a clear statement of what has been the game that has been played on powerless communities, on oppressed communities. They keep us powerless, they keep us oppressed by dividing us from those who should be our natural allies. We should be up in arms about the fact that they are bombing Venezuelan boats, because that has nothing to do with the drug trade. That has to do with them trying to lock down the planet for purposes of consolidating and expanding the empire. They want Venezuela's oil. They want regime change. They want to go in there and treat it in the same way that they treat Africa, the same way that they treat Caribbean, in the same way that they treat communities in Minnesota or Chicago, in Illinois, Michigan, any place else that are populated by people who should be in alliance with each other globally. Because they understand that if we come together as a global, allied mass of people who understand that we all have the same enemy, then they're finished. They absolutely are. Because think about it. They're pitting Venezuelans against people of African descent in this country. All right? If Venezuelans and people of African descent came together to defend Venezuela against the efforts to go in and to take oil, to get control of oil in Venezuela, what does that do to the empire? If people in Palestine unite with people from Venezuela and people of African descent in the United States and people from Africa to make sure that the empire does not get control to the oil that's in Palestine and Gaza and other places, what does that do to the empire's power? If people of all of these communities came together to defend and to protect Africa and its enormous wealth, not just oil, but mineral wealth and timber and other resources, and they come together to protect that against the empire's control of it and exploitation, what does that do to the empire? And they know that, which is why they're trying to do this. And we fall for it every single time. Well, these people are coming across the border and they're taking my opportunities. What, you always dreamed of going out and working in a field picking crops? Is that what you dreamed of? Is that what you aspired to? I mean, what is it that they're taking from you? Absolutely nothing. And even if they were, is that all that you want? You just want to sit at the edge of the table where the big, powerful billionaires and the oligarchs sit, and whenever they throw you a little crumb, a little scrap, that you go and jump for it, and you're happy with that, and you get upset because somebody else is trying to take your little scrap that's being thrown from the table? I've said it before and I'll say it again. What we need to do is we need to unite with all of these people who are oppressed throughout the world. We need to come together around that table where the oligarchs are sitting. We need to knock the legs off the table. We need to take everything that's on the table, and we need to throw all of the oligarchs out. And then the decent people of the world control the world and build a new kind of a world that's just and right for everybody.
Well, and you've seen Fidel Castro, when he came to speak at the United Nations more than 60 years ago, he stayed at the Hotel Teresa. That was a signal. You saw President Chavez of Venezuela. He said, Black Americans are having trouble with the heat. I've got gas. You can have it. And that's where we have to understand that these persons, they have another kind of thinking. And so we have an obligation to be much bigger than we are being in this moment. I think that many of us get it, many of us do not. And I'm not confining this conversation to Black people. I'm saying everybody. Because my mother often says, you cannot hurt me without hurting yourself. And ultimately, what they do is they divide and then they conquer. And so because there's some white people who got it before we did. there's some brown people who got it before we did. No one's perfect. We're all struggling, okay? But at the end of the day, we are all now living under occupation, and I'm seeing more and more people who are talking about it. Look, an ICE official said, "Wait a minute, if you speak against ICE detentions, we can arrest you." What does that say to you right now? I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, when a minister approaches an ICE facility, or when an elected official approaches an ICE facility, our our sister in New Jersey, federal indictment. Our brother here in Chicago shot in the face, and he said, and I heard them laughing when they shot me in my face, and the velocity of that so-called non-lethal bullet could have injured him, if not seriously injured him, if not killed him. It was aimed at his head. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, well, I've got correctional officer for the lockdown who wants to know from you, Attorney Fancher, can you provide any advice on the rights of a former law enforcement officer if he or she find themselves to be met with being profiled by ICE? What do you suggest?
Yeah, no, first of all, let's recognize and admit that what we're engaged in is a war. Okay. And what you sometimes see in warfare is that one side will try and demoralize the combatants in the enemy army. And they do that in a number of different ways, including sending propaganda, dropping, in the Vietnam War, they would drop leaflets and flyers and things which would cause the soldiers to question whether they really were best served by fighting this war. And I think we need to do that. Law enforcement officers, former law enforcement officers, they know how arrests are supposed to go down. They know, they understand it. That's what they do. And it's not just limited to them, but anybody who knows what the law is, knows how arrests are supposed to go down. If you don't know, you can learn. It's not that hard. If when you're being taken into custody, you're able to say to whoever is doing this, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing the other thing wrong. I'm taking careful note of what you're doing. And you understand that when I get out, I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you personally. And I know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And you need to think twice about what you're doing right now. All right? Many of these ICE officers, from what I understand, are people who are not professional law enforcement people. That they have just, put out the call for any Tom, Dick, and Harry who wants to come and do this, to come and do it. They give them a mask and they give them, credentials and say, get in the truck, let's go round up some people.
Wait a minute, and a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Put a pin in that. I saw a TikTok yesterday. I've now become a TikToker. And there were some young white men. I was about to call them boys, but they're very young. And they were wearing fake ICE vests and masks. And they were harassing people. And they were sitting in a fast food restaurant laughing about it. And this woman just filmed them. She said, so you're not ICE? They were like, no, this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those kinds of people, even the ones who are actually recruited, can potentially be intimidated by somebody who really knows what they're talking about. Yeah. They're signing on for an easy buck. They didn't sign on for potential criminal prosecution or civil liability. And if somebody is telling them, I know what you're doing is wrong, and I'm coming after you personally, all right, that might make them just think twice. It doesn't guarantee any results. But if the question is, what kinds of things can we do, on the spot in order to address this, knowing what is legal and proper is a good thing to know and can serve you well, because even if you don't just threaten at that moment, right, you're making observations that you can use later in legitimate court proceedings, if you can get to that point, will help you enormously in trying to get some accountability.
Matthew, why is this resonating with you?
Well, it's resonating with me. The big thing, the thing that really riled me up is the recruitment, right? Like what a slap in the face it is to, charge these ridiculous amounts for college and drown people in student debt.
Mm-hmm.
And you have people who are literally starving because they in student debt, can't get a job, and you offer them a job and say with the government to oppress other poor people, to arrest other poor people who are a lot like them, and they say we'll forgive your student loans for that. This is one of the benefits of becoming an ICE officer.
Wait a minute, forgiving your student loan.
Student loan forgiveness. It's like I think it's about a 30 to 50,000 sign-on bonus, one of those numbers, and then there's student loan forgiveness. So when you think about like giving that kind of incentive, what they are telling you is that they know that you are starving. Mm-hmm. They know that you are desperate. And what I think that one of the benefits, or one of the things that in our position we kind of have to leverage is our ability to talk to people and say, like, they know, say this exactly, and explain to them that you are being taken advantage of in this way or the next. Because I think that people don't understand how they're working against their interests. I think there is a kind of a belief that if we get enough of these people out of the way, then we will get jobs. Mm-hmm. And
wait a minute, jobs that they were not offering you before.
Yes, but it is a little bit of a backwards logic, but it's what they've been told. And one of the things, especially in trying to be a trainer and giving this information to people, is that I do have to step back and accept that people have been misled. They've been lied to. I'm in the business right now of telling Black people who otherwise think that this is not their problem, and explain to them that it is. Mm-hmm. So I have to accept that these people, when they're coming to us, that they've been lied to, that they've been misled. And so I give them the benefit of the doubt in that, and work backwards from there and say, okay, like, this is how you've been misled very specifically. They've told you that these people are taking jobs that you want. Well, let's think about it. What jobs do you actually want? Because even if we start there, then it illuminates something. What jobs do you actually want? Not the jobs that you've been forced to take. I mean, what jobs do you want? And then ask yourself, are these people taking those jobs? Okay, if these people aren't taking those jobs, what's been in the way of you getting those jobs? Has it been a lack of opportunity? Has it been debt that you've been drowned in? Has it been the fact that groceries are expensive? Has it been the fact that rent is running you poor, running you broke? If the answer lies in these things, these other, it usually does lie in these other aspects of life that we're faced with, then we can start to encourage people to focus on those things and how you can change those things, right? How you can be a part of a movement that's working to provide support for people who aren't getting groceries. How you can be strategic about your use of social media or of AI, which is consuming fresh water in different communities in across America, usually Black communities, usually poor communities. And when we can try to starting from that point of, you've been lied to, you've been manipulated, they know you're desperate and they're trying to take advantage of you. because we don't have that, right? We don't have any incentive to take advantage of it. If we take advantage of what do we take advantage of you to do to give out groceries? That's what we're doing. We're not infiltrating nobody's school. We're not arresting anybody. We're not beating anybody up. We're trying to be assets to our community. And I think one of the most powerful things we can do in this moment is let people know how they can be assets to their community, how you can be a part of the fight back, how you can be a part of gaining some support and giving some support. So I think that's like where we sit at, and especially in this coalition, is that we understand already that it's happening. This is no like when it happens or if it's coming down the line. Like we are in what we feel like likely will be in for the next year. So are we going to continue to be afraid to do things? Are we going to continue to allow our streets to be run amok by these mass random individuals? Or are we going to decide to step up against it? And this is our opportunity to step up against it.
Well, Solomon Harris is saying that nobody's being oppressed. We just want the criminals out.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see.
I can
What is it?
appreciate
The majority of Black people aren't trying to save illegals, he says. It's only these Black boule folks that are fighting hard for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Santita, he comes on every day and just to make trouble. And I don't care what he thinks about me or what he says. He's a troll. I've said it before, and I don't waste time responding to him. But what I will say is this.
Well, my only challenge, because I can go past things too, but that is something that I've been hearing, and that was something, that was a reason, that was a logic that you heard widely spread in the community until we had that big raid on 75th and South Shore in Chicago on the South Side. Then people said, "Oh, wait a minute, over here." Well, because South Shore it goes from affluent to working class to middle class. And that particular area was literally crossroads. On that side of the street is working class. You literally cross on the other side, and these are lakefront condominiums and houses, one or two. So I mean, I only bring that up, Mark, because some of us really did believe that it's only upper class Black people who are concerned. And I've had that in interactions with many people I know, and I'm like, you do not know, and this was weeks ago, that what you've done unto the least of these, you've also done unto me. Do you not know that if it starts over here, it's gonna they're coming our way? So Mark, your response.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's because people continue to say things like that there are people who believe it. And I think that I would rather spend time in my discussions of this to talk about things that are real rather than trying to respond to a lot of misinformation. And the thing that that troubles me a lot about this entire phenomenon is that the country itself, the society, the U.S. society, has really been experiencing and continues to experience a spiritual death. It has in the White House someone who is killing the country spiritually, making hatred something that is not only acceptable but a virtue, continuing to make people look at each other with hostility, to undermine and dehumanize certain groups of people, to in some ways cause people to think that the ideal is to elevate oneself at the expense of others. And historically and culturally, Black people in particular have not been that. We have been firmly rooted in a God-oriented tradition. And that has manifested in different ways. Some of us are Christians, some of us are Muslims, some of us are this or that. But we have always put God at the center of who we are, and we've taken our cue about how to behave and how to interact with other people from Him. And there are other communities of color in this country which have also had a similar orientation. Even during the period of enslavement, when many of us escaped from plantations, there were First Nations who were very oriented toward the Creator and toward understanding the humanity, accepting the humanity of others, who gave us refuge as runaways. And we, in some cases, particularly in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing, our shared plight. First Nations people and escaped enslaved Africans fought shoulder to shoulder against the U.S. government and maintained control of Florida, in defending. And, likewise, we have seen solidarity between communities of color because we just recognized our shared humanity and our duty to be loving toward our fellow human beings, regardless of who they are. And what this episode in our history has done is to work against that. And that is heartbreaking because even if there were no practical value in our defending people who have been targeted by ICE because they come from south of the border and because they speak Spanish, even if there were no practical concerns about that, we should, according to our culture and our history and our theology, have been reaching out a helping hand to them anyway, simply because they're our brothers and sisters. And to try and get into a discussion about, well, what's the practical, we should be concerned about them because ultimately it's going to come to us. Yes, that's true, but that should not be the only motivation. It should be simply because these are people in trouble. They're God's children, just like we are. And we have a duty to protect them and defend them, if for no reason other than that.
And that's enough.
Absolutely.
And that is absolutely more than enough. And you can put any label on it that you want, and Solomon, look, whatever someone's political philosophy is, it is your business. And as an American, if you believe in freedom and liberty, as you say that you do, you would not be upset with someone because they're a democratic socialist or Marxist or Leninist. Capitalism is not working out for you. They're talking about giving $1 trillion payout to Elon Musk, who makes $8 million a day from you, but that's not bothering you, while we are giving $40 billion to Argentina. And we will not fund SNAP. You've got the federal. SNAP might go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think it's
Really?
important to listen. Yeah, like the idea that one of the ideas is that they're taking jobs, and when I think about taking jobs, AI is outpacing immigrants in terms of taking jobs from people, especially jobs that people actually that Black people are going for. When we talk about administrative roles that AI are eliminating, we're talking about. I mean, Solomon in the comments is talking about and I almost I want to take it back, almost shouting him out, but just the idea that Latino people are taking CDL jobs. Like you just mentioned, Elon Musk is in the business of building autonomous trucks that drive themselves. And in empowering those autonomous trucks, this is not speculation. This is just what it is. AI requires a lot of fresh water to keep these data centers cool that they use. So not only are they taking the jobs in the form of truck driving jobs, they're using our water and making us pay the bill for it. We're paying the energy bill.
That's right.
When they build these data centers, the people in those communities have to pay the increased energy bill. The people in those communities have to pay the increased water bill and have less access to water. It's not about, like, I think that sometimes it can get caught up in these ideological positions, this Democrat, this Republican, this Marxist, this capitalist. Ultimately, like Mark is saying, that we're human beings at the end of the day, and what's best in the best interest of human beings is actually to protect our water resources for the necessary usage of people. What's in the best interest of human beings actually not to keep advancing artificial intelligence in fields where people make a living. What's best for human beings is actually not to arrest people just randomly. And that's one of the main things, is that the Supreme Court has made it that it doesn't matter what somebody's immigration status is. If you look immigrant enough to them, they get to arrest you. That is a life-altering experience. Equity and Transformation is an organization built up of people, built by and for people who are formerly incarcerated. Every one of the people on our team knows what it feels like to be thrown in chains and to have our freedom taken away. That is a life-changing experience that a lot of Americans will never be able to understand. But we, being Black people who have been arrested at some point of another of our lives, have a very visceral understanding of what it means to have your freedom taken away, even if just temporarily. That's a traumatic experience. And are we okay in our humanity, in whatever religious belief you may hold or you may not? Are you okay with the idea that we are traumatizing human beings, whether we are holding them account for their legal or civil violations, whatever they may be? The idea that we need to infiltrate schools, that we need to arrest people who are teachers. These are teachers. These are the criminals that you're talking about, teachers?
Wait a minute. And doing it in front of their students, in front of their charges. That's devastating. I wish I only have a couple minutes left here. But Matthew Harvey, I want you to come back, of course, and join Attorney Mark Fancher on the show, because we need to continue to have that conversation about what it is like. Oh, there was a wonderful song that we used to sing. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I would love to get rid of these chains that are holding me. Say it loud, say it clear. I want to be free. And I think we ought to stand in solidarity with anyone who is in chains. I cannot even imagine having my teacher arrested in front of me. Because if your teacher can be arrested, what can happen to you? You're not safe. So, Matthew Harvey, award-winning journalist, equity and transformation. Young man, we're so proud of you. In the final minute, what do you want us to know?
I want you to know that Black people are working on this problem, and that this is Black people's issue right now. That we are under attack in the form of federal law enforcement, and our communities are in danger. But I want you to know that we are at work every day trying to make sure that our community is supported, protected, and kept safe. We are providing mutual aid. We are providing know your rights training. We are providing just community. We want you to come connect with us, and we want you to be safe and be able to live during this time without fear. So lock in with us. We're on Harrison in California, the West Side Justice Center, where there's a host of organizations that are working to the benefit of Black communities, of all communities, and come join us.
Amen. Attorney Mark Fancher?
I just want to remind all of us that when we fall into the trap of thinking that this is not our business, and accompanying that is frequently the rhetoric of, well, they never do anything for us. And that is just so wrong. In this program, we've talked about the First Nations people and what they've done for us historically. Santita, you made reference to Venezuela and its outreach with respect to heating oil for poor people in Black communities up north. But it just goes on and on and on. I mean, in Cuba during Hurricane Katrina, they mobilized hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doctors who were prepared to come into that flood-ravaged region and to provide assistance. And the U.S. would not let them come in, but they were ready to come in.
And they would not allow the marine hospitals from Venezuela to come in. Reverend was with Chavez, President Chavez, when it happened. And he saw this coming several days out. And they refused to have marine hospitals that would have treated hundreds of persons per hospital.
Exactly. And in Nicaragua, when the Sandinistas took power, one of the first things that they did, was to make Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a national holiday. They did that before the United States made it a national holiday. And if you want to look in Africa, you look at the fact that we celebrate the end of apartheid in South Africa, but that would not have happened without the Cubans going over and providing military assistance to fight that battle, to end one of the most ferocious and vicious forms of racial oppression that we have come to know. And at the end of it, part of the way that they finally negotiated an end to that was the Cubans said, well, we will withdraw our military in exchange for ending apartheid. And we only want one thing. And they were thinking, well, what they're going to ask for, they're going to ask for gold, they're going to ask for this, they're going to ask for that. They said, all that we want is to take home the remains of our fallen soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they picked them up and they left. And they took all of their soldiers out of Southern Africa. But within a very short period of time, they replaced all of those soldiers, person for person, with physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no country on the planet who has provided more physicians to aid Africa than Cuba.
That's right.
And so this kind of solidarity among oppressed people goes on and on. We could talk about in Iran during the hostage crisis, when they, as a gesture of solidarity with Black people, let the Black people go. Okay, we can go on and on about that type of solidarity between oppressed people, particularly oppressed people of color. And it's not just people of color. The Irish, in terms of the oppression that they've undergone as a result of empire, have been in solidarity with people. We cannot break that tradition. It is a sacred tradition, and we owe it to our ancestors who have suffered, who bled, and the sacrifices that have been made by so many people who are not exactly our skin color, who don't come from exactly the same place that we come from, but who understand our suffering, and who, just because of their sense of humanitarian concern, want everybody to be free. We have to be a part of that. We cannot be a part of the hatred that has come to characterize the United States during this time.
And they may not be skin, but they are kin. And I must say, in the Iran crisis, and I've shared this with you, Attorney Fancher, my mother was in Lebanon with Chairman Yasser Arafat. And when they heard that these Americans had been taken hostage, they wanted Mrs. Jackson and her Black women's delegation to fly to Tehran. They were going to give all of the hostages to them. But President Carter told my father that it was too dangerous. And my mother, he said, you need to come home. It was Thanksgiving of 1979. She came home and she was very, very dejected, very upset. But as a sign of solidarity, they said, what we will do is send the Black people and the women home because they are oppressed. Everybody, all over the world, people see us. We need to learn to see each other. We really, really do. And so I want to thank you, Matthew Harvey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Mark Fancher. And know that you have a home here.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Much love to you.
Good speaking to you.
Next show in about 30 minutes, everybody, we're going to be talking about Mississippi flipping blue. Yeah, we talked about New York. We talked about Virginia. We talked about New Jersey. We talked about California. But in the South, I tell you what, Black people were on the move. And we're going to talk about that here on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a moment.